5 key actions to bolster your EAT score and prepare for SGE with Capwum Dingus. The In Search SEO podcast is brought to you by Similarweb, helping you build better SEO strategies with digital intelligence, insights, and data. Hey, it's David. What are the key actions you need to do to bolster your EAT score and prepare for SGE? That's what we're covering today with a man whose accomplishments include writing 3 novels, being a Brighton SEO speaker, and eating 100 nuggets in 21 minutes. He's worked in SEO for the past 10 years and is currently SEO manager at Symmetrical. A warm welcome to the In Search SEO podcast, Capwum Dingus.
Thank you for having me.
Hey Capwum, thanks for coming on there. Well, you provided the fact that you wanted to share with the world there about the nuggets. Interesting skill set you've got there.
Yeah, I definitely won't be doing that again. It was a good challenge to have done, but it's a lot more difficult than you think it is.
Oh, it seems about 90 too much for me, but I'll leave it to you.
Yeah.
You can find Capwum over at symmetrical.com. So Capwum, what do you need, or rather actually, why do you need to bolster your EAT score to prepare for SGE?
In simple terms, you need to bolster your EAT score because it's playing more and more of a crucial role in how well you do in the SERPs, in organic SERPs. Google has given us guidelines around EAT and how important it is in how they view your business, your website, and ultimately how it plays a role in where they're going to ultimately rank you in SERPs. Because the more they can trust the information from your site and that you provide generally, the more likely you are to appear at the top of the results. So it's very crucial, very crucial.
Okay, and getting that trust, getting that recognition, that authority, that's all the more important, considering the fact that SGE means that singular source of truth, possibly.
Exactly. So, obviously SGE is currently only in the US, but using VPNs and such of the like, we've been able to kind of run some tests, of our own. Obviously, there's other tests that bigger organizations that have put out there as well. But one of the things we have noticed is sites that they draw the AI generated results from tend to be ones that have a really good reputation and have built their trust factor over a time period. You might appear for the odd time here and there if you haven't built your EAT score to a very strong point, but we definitely saw a correlation, probably more of a correlation between the trust factor and the authority of a website than actual rankings. Because what we saw was where, like, for example, if you were in the featured snippet spot, you weren't any more likely to rank in the Gen AI results than if you were, say, 9th or 10th position. Although it does seem that there is a minimal score, so you needed to be in the top 20 generally.
Interesting. So featured snippet doesn't necessarily mean AI result.
Exactly. There was no correlation. In fact, it seemed that positions 1 to 3 tended to appear more often than featured snippets.
Well, today you're sharing 5 key actions to bolster your EAT score and prepare for SGE. So that sort of starts off with number 1, create engaging and unique content.
Exactly. Yeah. Ultimately, we've got to remember Google as a service, right? So they're providing a service to users, and that is information. The more trustworthy that information is, the more engaging it is, the better or happier their users are. So if you create great content, engaging content that's a bit different as well from everyone else, and unique in its own way, you improve your chances of appearing as an authority figure, as an expert in your field. And ultimately, in the long term, if you continue to do that, you build trust with Google. So that's number 1 essential and the fundamental. If there's only one recommendation people should take away with them, it's a simple one, and they've probably heard it, but taking it serious and really, even if you do have content already up there, going back, reviewing it, making sure it's fresh, it's updated. If you've got any old advice that no longer applies, make sure you update that. especially if you're in the your money, your life area. So yeah, that's such an important one.
Okay, so that's your most important tip, but listener, please stay for the next 4. They will be quite good as well. But just quickly, in relation to what you were saying there, actually, you were talking about how you don't necessarily have to be the same as everyone else, and how you should actually be a little bit different. The challenge that many SEOs will have with that is they'll research a niche, they'll have a look at the results for certain keyword phrases within that niche, and they'll see what's currently successful and see similarities between the different results there, so they don't want to be too different because they think they have to do the same kind of thing to rank for that keyword phrase. So what would you say to that?
Yeah, I would say always go back and ask yourself the question, how can I make my content more engaging than what's already out there? If you do that, then you're a bit more willing or likely to take risks, because there's almost always a way to improve content. Even the best of sites that are ranking, doing well, in a couple of years or in a year or whenever it is, if they were to review their content, they could probably improve on it, whether that's adding new media sources to engage people, whether that's the format that certain data is displayed. There's always some way to be different. You don't have to always change the whole format or have to think of some wacky way to present things, because what works works. But there's always some kind of improvement.
There's a twist, yeah.
Yeah, to make it unique, for sure.
Or the second way to boost your reach is to double down on author experience, or expertise rather.
Yeah, so one of the things that we've really seen from Eat, just talking from personal experience, is that Google likes to see that those that are creating content on your website actually have the authority and the experience to make the recommendations. It's that much more crucial in your money, your life, where you're impacting, the direction of people's lives potentially. But it's just so important to try and or show Google and show whatever search engines and visitors as well that visit your website that content is being created by someone who actually knows what they're talking about. It will not just help drive traffic to your site, but also with conversions when people actually land on your website. Yeah, that's one I'd say definitely double down on. Link to their social media profiles, list all their credentials. If you're in the medical field, for example, and they're a doctor, make sure you highlight their what field they're working on, if it's applicable, and just make sure that anyone who visits that website is secure in knowing that this is someone who knows what they're talking about.
And what about linking from the author page of the company blog out to other websites that they've been featured on? So if they've been on podcast episodes or they've written blog posts on other sites, should they actually link out to those articles, features?
Yeah, very much so. So one of the things sometimes I still find, which is a bit weird in the SEO world, is people very tentative about linking out to other pages, external pages, which is the wrong way of thinking. If it's providing factual evidence that this person has certain expertise level or has certain knowledge, then by all means, link to their website, link to their social media profile. Yeah, link to any podcast they've done, anything that builds trust and shows that this is someone who's an expert in this field. Yeah, I would say by all means, link to that information. It helps the search engine. It helps people as well when they're looking at they may not always look at the author, but when they do, because they might question some advice, knowing that that's an expert could make all the difference.
Brilliant. Okay. And it'll also encourage thought leaders within your own business to hopefully get out there and be featured in other podcasts, other blogs out there, because if they're going to get featured, if they're going to build their personal brand, might motivate them that little bit more.
Yeah, definitely.
Let's move on to number 3. So keep your site safe and secure.
This is one where, most, enterprise sites and people that are well established in SEO probably have heard before, but it's worth reiterating because it's something that sometimes slips under the radar. It's really important to have a secure site. So making sure you have your SSL security badge there and making sure that you confirm how you're going to use a customer's information, say if they're signing up for something, and abiding by the laws of, whether that's EU regulations, etc. So really making sure, and then if it's payment processing, etc. for e-commerce sites, ensuring that you've got a very robust and secure process for that. It's very essential because it builds trust. If someone who's in the space like ourselves lands on the website and we see that missing SSL certificate, we could easily avoid the website drop off. So it will impact conversions, and ultimately, just from search engines' point of view, having a secure site says this is a trustworthy site, and is more likely to improve your chances of appearing in SERP. And then as we move on into the search generative experience side of things, again, you're building that trust factor so that when that Gen AI result is being shown, if the information from your site is seen as secure, trustworthy, and just, the general score of the site is seen as safe, it's more than likely to help with the results in that area.
And number 4, focus on building brand.
Yep. So I'm sure, especially if you're in the digital marketing space, but even if you're not, understanding the value of a brand is very critical. It's really important. If you build a strong enough brand, you can end up getting thousands and, potentially even hundreds of thousands of visitors that land on your website just from like brand searches. So in of itself, it has its value in driving traffic and conversions directly. The other way to think about this as well is if you build your brand and it becomes a well-known, strong brand, that automatically signals to Google or whatever search engine you're trying to rank for that this is a site that people, trust. They're actually actively seeking to go to that website. And, assuming over time you build not just the brand name, but reviews, and more important, I guess, that feedback where it's clear that you're offering a great service and people are happy with what you're offering. Yeah, that gives the search engines a very strong signal to say, okay, these are guys that are trustworthy and we can rank them without annoying ultimately our customers, the people that come to us to find the goods and services they're looking for.
And number 5, have transparency and includes credentials. So what does that mean?
Yeah, so basically, I think sometimes businesses are not, or are scared to maybe show areas of where they might not be as strong as another business or competitor. And it doesn't mean you put yourself down, but if there is an area where you might not be as strong, I think sometimes customers actually really appreciate, and that can actually be a converting factor for some customers where they see, okay, they've clearly listed all their benefits, all the things they're good at, but they've also, alluded to the fact that maybe, and you can do this in many ways, that when this is an area you're not maybe as strong. So being transparent can actually be a very good and positive thing for yourself. Or if it's just maybe that you're limited in the services that you offer, just being very transparent with that.
That's a good point. Yeah, so thinking I was just thinking if you're an SEO consultant running a small SEO agency, if you got a client comes to you to say, well, can you run our paid search campaign as well? You could take a little bit of extra money, or you could say to them, look, that's not my specialty, but I could recommend you to someone who can really help with that. And that will build more transparency and trust with your SEO service.
Yeah, exactly. And if they ever wanted to hire someone for the services that you do offer, you come to mind first because you're someone that they, believe they can trust. So in the long term, I feel for businesses, that's a really good way to go, being transparent. And when we talk about the credentials side of things, again, this, goes back to that element of building, the expertise and building that authority and trust where the search engines and your visitors can see, oh, they're part of this body. that has these amount of tests. And sometimes you can educate people on what it is those credentials actually mean to really hammer the point home. And I think, like I said, not just going into the search generative experience era, but just the AI era in general, being able to really show that you're a business that is trustworthy and is an expert in this field is such an important thing.
Well, let's finish off with
the Pareto pickle.
So Pareto says that you can get 80% of your results from 20% of your efforts. What's one SEO activity you would recommend that provides incredible results for modest levels of effort?
Yeah, I would say it's taking a step back, and I'd say probably doing this quarterly. I know some people say annually, but I think if you do this quarterly, just take a step back and look at your business holistically, or look at your website holistically, and really ask yourself the question, am I providing the answers to the questions that my audience are really asking? And this can be an ever-changing thing, right? So the questions people might be asking around SEO and digital marketing today might not be the questions they're asking in 6 months or in a year. So this is why I say if you can do quarterly, maybe even monthly, depending on the space you're in, just taking that step back and really asking yourself, what's the essential questions that will actually help with the element of EAT, as going back to that, in terms of showing not just your audience, but showing any crawlers and search engines that actually you are thinking of your audience, answering their questions, which will help with engagement, help with conversions, or these kind of things. If you do that right, it makes the whole content creation process and everything else that follows a lot smoother. And so you get, going back to the Pareto principle, getting most of your results, 80% of your results from 20% of your effort. I feel like if you do that foundation correctly, everything else flows from that. So yeah, that would be my recommendation.
I've been your host, David Bain. You can find Capworm Dinkus over at symmetrical.com. Capworm, thanks so much for being on the In Search SEO podcast.
Thanks for having me, David.
And thank you for listening. Check out all the previous episodes and sign up for a free trial of the Similarweb platform over at Similarweb.com.